Folks, would you believe me if I told you that Chopin's E minor Prelude was played at his very own funeral? You should believe me, because it's a well-documented fact, and also it is insanely depressing. Just listen to this thing. Welcome to Amateur Hour. Now, if we were to describe this prelude in words, it would be very, very simple. It's just a melody and some chords. I should put melody in quotes because this is barely a melody. There are parts where it's a little more intricate, but for the most part it just repeats notes like this. And underneath that is a bunch of chords. But beyond this superficial simplicity, there's actually quite a lot of stuff going on here that makes this prelude very, very interesting and fun to play, fun to listen to, just a great piece. So let's start looking into it. First of all, I want to pose a question. What is the lifeblood of this piece? Is it in the melody or in the chords? And why am I even asking this? The reason I'm asking it is because this prelude breaks a rule. So it breaks a rule that songs, and I use the word song carefully here, songs, in other words, pieces of music that can be broken down to, at its core, a melody and some chords, some harmony underneath it. So songs, for the most part, almost always in a song, the melody stands on its own. Just think of any example. Here, we're in the classical world, so let me give you a classical piece. This is Mendelssohn's, one of his songs without words, the Spring Song. Pretty song. Okay, well, that melody stands on its own. The melody, almost no matter what I do with the left hand, almost what I do with the chords underneath it, as long as I really make this melody, if I make that sing, that's what people cue into. That's what gets stuck in people's heads. That's what they're whistling after they're listening, after they've heard the piece, or if it's stuck in their head. I can do almost whatever I want with the chords. I mean, the way Mendelssohn wrote it is very cool. These little arpeggios are nice, but I could just do and it still sounds quite nice. You still recognize it. It's still beautiful. This applies to everything. This applies to, I learned Kodachrome recently by Paul Simon. Did you know how amazing the backing band is of Kodachrome? Absolutely amazing, amazing backing band. I forget their name. They're from Alabama. But I'm sorry to say, for those session musicians, nobody remembers the backing band. They remember that beautiful, beautiful melody of Kodachrome. Anything, any song that you love. Billie Jean is another one that pops in my head. As cool as that groove is, as great as that bass line is, as soon as Michael Jackson starts singing and you got that melody, that's what people cue into. All of that is to say that I think it is kind of a rule that in a song, the melody stands on its own. It's what we cue into the most. So how does this prelude break that? It breaks it in a number of ways. First of all, this melody does not stand on its own. It's so repetitive. I mean, it keeps repeating this, and even when it changes a bit, like now it goes down, and again repeats, and repeats, and repeats again. And only here does it change a little bit, where it does this cool it's a little more interesting of a line. But the melody, for the most part, does not stand on its own. It really comes alive once you add the chords underneath it. But on its own, it doesn't really stand. Not just that, I want to point out that a danger that a trap you can fall into playing this piece is trying to make the melody stand on its own and really lean into what's called the rubato, like to stretch out the rhythm to try to make it more melodramatic, more passionate. So you would hear people play it like this. Let me exaggerate quite a lot. sickly. I think it helps to put some rubato in it, but if you try to put it absolutely everywhere to make this simple repetitive melody stand out more, I think it gets too much, for my aesthetic tastes. So that's one reason. The other reason is I think the chords do stand on their own. I think the Prelude would be a lot weaker without the melody, but the stuff that what these chords do is quite cool. I think you got the idea. I don't know about you, but I could listen to this Prelude just with the chords. Again, it wouldn't be as great, but I would say that the chords stand on their own in a way that in other songs they don't. Let's do the Spring Song again. If all I did was I mean, it's a nice harmony. But it's missing something. It's missing. It's the melody that we want. So in this Prelude, I would say that the lifeblood is neither the melody nor the chords. It's actually the interplay between them. There are times when I want to make the melody come out more. For example, like in this part, the and now the chords are more important. And then the melody. So don't lean into one or the other, and especially don't lean into the melody. If you are going to lean into one thing more, it would be the chords. I have played this piece in a way where the melody is almost like buried underneath the chords. You barely hear it. It's weird, but it works. But not the other way around. If you really try to make the melody stand out on its own, I think you will find that this piece does not support that. So, very interesting thing. Already you can see how this is such a cool prelude. Let's talk about the chords. I've kept mentioning the chords. Let's say what's interesting about them. There are three things. Okay, so the first one, let's take them in a particular order that I am not going to motivate, but it is an order. So the first thing I want to mention is that, so these chords, with very few exceptions, when the chord changes, it changes by only one note. So after the first change, here we do have more than one note changing, but take a look at this. From this point on, there's a long section where we're changing the top note. Now we're changing the bottom note. Top note, middle note, bottom note, middle note, top, middle. I'm only changing one chord, not one note. Not only that, let me take this a bit slower. Not only am I only changing one note of this chord, I am changing it as little as possible. I'm changing it one semitone or one half step. You can see on the piano, like between this note, this key, and this key, there is no other note. That's not true. There are infinitely number of notes. In our Western tradition, we have landed on these 12. More on that some other time, maybe not even in this series. Anyways, we're changing the smallest distance possible on the piano and in our Western 12 equal note system. So notice how much the quality of the chord changes with just one single note. From here to here, and then to here, and then from here when we go down like this, it just changes the quality so much, even though it's one note that changed. And not only did one note change, only one, it changed as little as possible. and now we changed more than one. For the musicians among you, say, well, what's the big deal? You know that one of the first things you learn is you got a major chord, such as this one, and if you take the middle note and you move it down 1/2 step, you now have a minor chord. And it's kind of burned into your brain, oh, you've got a major chord which is happy, but you change just one note, that middle note, and suddenly it's minor. Whoops. And you get used to it, becomes so natural that such a small change can make such a big difference. You might have heard, for example, people playing the Moonlight Sonata major. Look how different it is. There was a fly here. But I want you to try to not reassess. It is amazing that just one tiny change can make such a big difference from major to minor. And the chords in this prelude really, really drive that home, because it is such a long series of just one semitone changes that drive the entire piece. There's not one chord change that's boring in this piece. Absolutely every chord change is so interesting with just a minor difference. Very interesting. Now, the second thing to talk about with the chords is that this prelude is written in half time. So what does that mean? What does half time mean? Essentially what it means is we're going to be placing accents we're going to be accenting at different times. So if this was not written in half time, if it was written in standard 4/4 or common time, you can see there's a C here, that's for common. And you can see the slash in it means it's cut in half time. So if it was just regular common time, regular 4/4, we would be accenting every 2 chords. I'm going to accent it on the piano, but I'm going to throw in some beats, some drums in editing and post to drive the point home. Nothing, and I mean nothing, helps accentuate things more than a drum kit. Nothing. So if it was in regular 4/4 time, we would be accenting every 2 chords. Let me really lean into it. Let me keep going and not lean into it as much. Compare that to what it sounds like if we played in halftime, and instead of accenting every 2 chords, we accent every 4 chords. Changes the entire feel of the piece so much more, whether we're feeling accents very often or much rarer. And the fact that in halftime because we're playing accenting every 4 chords, sometimes we change the chord within that 4, like over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You see we changed in the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4. But we're not accenting when that change happens, because we're only accenting every 4 chords. We do a chord change without accenting it, and it makes for an interesting feel. Much better to play this piece in cut time. My main recommendation for this piece, if you play it, is to pay attention to the accenting and the halftime indication, and really feel that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or I guess I would count it more like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. One more thing to mention about this, the fact that it's in half time, it puts a lower limit on the speed, because if you were to play this way too slow, at a very slow tempo, it would be hard to keep track for a listener, for the body to feel those accents. If it's too slow, it's hard to feel it in half time. I mean, if it's like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, you no longer feel it in half time. You do feel that accent every 4 chords, but you don't have that feeling of the second set of 4 chords is part of the first set of 4. You can see it the way it's written over here, because we have measures, so every measure has 8 chords. So in a single measure, we play 4 chords, and then the next set of 4 chords. Well, that second set of 4 chords still feels like it's part of that measure. You can also feel the measure because the melody, when the melody does 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, we feel like we've come back home. So when you play it too slowly, even though you still feel the accent every 4 chords, it's hard to feel the measures. It's hard to feel like, oh, I have a measure of 8 chords. Because you play it so slowly, all you feel is, okay, every 4 chords, I have an accent. So you need to speed up the tempo a little bit so that you can still feel that halftime like this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So be careful with the tempo, but whatever tempo you choose, make it cut time, half time. Okay, the last thing you might have noticed, or maybe not, but probably yes, I believe in you, that I was using the pedal quite a lot. I think on the modern piano, this song is almost unplayable without the pedal. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, kids. Prove me wrong. I think it is too dry without the pedal, but Chopin did not write pedal. If you look at this, the only pedal indication Chopin wrote, did I hallucinate it? Is it not here? No, it is here, yeah. It's over here in 2 places when he does... Because the left hand has to do this jump, Chopin was like, oh, okay, the only way to really play this together, legato, would be with the pedal, so that's why he put it there. And in another section over here, when he does this big jump. So, okay, first of all, what does it sound like on the modern piano without a pedal? Something like that. I probably should have practiced this without the pedal a couple more times, because I'm realizing now if I use my same technique with the pedal, without the pedal, it just sounds a little different. So I'm sure you have to change your interpretation when you play without the pedal, obviously. But as an idea, that's kind of what it would sound like. Now, to me, it sounds pretty dry. And I think the beautiful resonance of the piano that comes alive with the pedal, I mean, Anton Rubinstein said the pedal is the soul of the piano. I don't agree with that, but I think Bach is the soul of the piano, and Thelonious Monk, those 2 people, who did not use the pedal all that much, to be honest, neither of them. But especially in the romantic repertoire, so we're talking Chopin here, the pedal is amazing. It's gorgeous. Very, very briefly, I'm not going to go into this too much, but just to prove how great the pedal is, do something like this. Let's hold down a C major chord, but I'm not going to play, I haven't played the notes, right? So this is an electric piano, but essentially what I've done here is I've pressed down on the keys slowly enough so that the hammers did not touch the chords, but now these chords are free to vibrate. Folks, Future Dan here. I keep saying chords instead of strings. The reason for that being that in Romanian, the plural for strings is chords. But through context, it should be pretty obvious if I mean chords as in a bunch of notes played together, or the strings in the piano that vibrate when you press down a key and it gets hit by a hammer. So sorry about that. Now, I'm going to play a C octave. Do you hear that? The sound of these C notes over here caused these chords to vibrate because these chords that I'm holding down here vibrate sympathetically with this C. It makes sense, right? I'm holding down a C major chord, so it would make sense that playing a C note would make the C major chords vibrate. Well, if I hold down the pedal and I play a C, not only am I hearing that C chord vibrate, every single other chord in the piano vibrates sympathetically with that note, some more than others. So for example, if I hold down these chords and I play a C, they didn't vibrate at all. I think physically they do vibrate a little bit, but probably infinitesimally small that we don't even hear it. So the point is, if I hold down the pedal, every single string on the piano is free to vibrate. Therefore, every single note I play causes every other string, some more than others, to vibrate. That's what I mean by a rich sound, a resonant sound. Playing a chord is beautiful without the pedal. Playing a chord with the pedal already down already makes the sound much richer. This electric piano is pretty good, so it simulates that quite well. On a real piano, the effect is even more pronounced. If you have an actual piano, even an upright, play a chord without the pedal, and then play a chord having already pressed down the pedal, and you will hear a big difference in the sound. So I don't know what to say. I ignore Chopin's indications here. I don't think the written note is the truth. It's one of my big beefs with classical music tradition. But yeah, I don't follow what Chopin writes over here because I think the sound is too rich with the pedal and it's too dry without it. And I don't know why he wrote it like this, especially in his time. The pianos were, it's true that the pianos of his time were less resonant. So much less resonant, in fact, that there are examples, I don't have them off the top of my head right now, but there are examples where Chopin does not indicate to change a pedal, even with chords like this, for example. On our modern piano that is so resonant, you need to clear the pedal between something like this and something like this, because the notes clash way too much. On his piano, because it was less resonant, it was okay to keep the pedal down even when playing, for example, chords like this, because it was less resonant. So they didn't clash as much. Nevertheless, it just feels weird to me to play this piece without the pedal. So you do you, all right? But I would say even if you play with the pedal, try it without, which I haven't done enough. Try it without to see what it's like, and then make a decision. Okay, that is it for this piece, this wonderful, beautiful, beautiful prelude. That's kind of what I have to say about it. If you're a pianist, stick around. Let's talk about how to practice it. And then I'll give you one tip on how to learn it, because this piece is, I think it might have been one of the hardest pieces to memorize. Okay, how to practice it. Okay, basically, I think the main thing to practice with this piece are these chords. So let's start talking about that. There are two ways to play a chord. You can play a chord where you're making one of the notes ring out. So let me give you an example. I'm going to make the E ring out. now the B. It's harder. There we go. And now the G. This E minor inversion shape is one of the harder shapes for me. But you can see I can make these ring out. So that's one way to play a chord. The other way is when you're not making any of the notes ring out. Every note rings out equally. I'm not sure how well I'm doing it. They sound pretty equal to me. But the point is I'm not trying to make any note ring out. I'm trying to play them all equally. I think, again, maybe this is more of an aesthetic decision, but I think in this piece it is much better to play this second way, because if you were to choose one note to ring out, for example, let's say you wanted to make the note that changes ring out. You would be moving around the chord very much. So at first, I make the top note ring out. Now I'm making the middle note, the bottom note. Now the top note again. Now the middle note. Now the bottom. So you jump around the chord too much. It's very disorienting. You could, I suppose, choose one of the notes to make it ring out. And let's say I always make the top note ring out. But I think that gets too repetitive. It's not very interesting because you're ignoring when the chord changes. So I really think the best way to do this is to play every chord equally. Every note in every chord is equal. And it creates like a flat bedding of just these pads. Think of electronic pads if you listen to electronic music. This like bed of shapes, of a harmony that just changes constantly, constantly, constantly. If you were to make one note ring out, it would kind of break that. So how to play chords in this way? It's actually easier. Essentially, you keep your hand, I'm gonna say rigid, but I'm gonna say rigid. I mean, you're trying to make your muscles strong enough so that, here, let me exaggerate. If you're going like this, you see, I'm keeping my wrist steady, I'm keeping my fingers steady, I'm moving from here, from this pivot point. I'm keeping the fingers and the rest of the musculature rigid enough that as I go down and I touch the keys and I keep moving down into the bed of the keyboard, those muscles don't buckle. You can do this from the wrist as well. Keep your fingers steady. For really big chords, you can do this from here. You can keep your elbow steady and the rest steady, and just from here, really move down. But the point is, ultimately, no matter where you play from, I mean, for these chords, I really think you should play mostly like this. You're keeping fingers pretty rigid, and you're letting your hand sink into the key bed. This is a good way to practice it. You move up a little bit. You ensure yourself that every finger is staying steady. Don't let them buckle. Don't make a claw. Don't make a claw, but you need your fingers to have the muscles of the fingers be ready to lock in for that moment as you're hitting down, okay? But don't keep a claw. Try to be as relaxed as possible. Only activate the muscles that you need. So move up a little bit, move down, try to keep everything equal, and try to keep one even motion to the bottom of the key bed. This is not easy to do. It takes quite a lot of effort. I'm not doing it perfectly by any means. Whoops, I lost my chord. There it is. You can do this even without this exaggeration of moving up and down. So when I play it, I'm always staying on the keys because they change pretty fast. I really don't have time to be doing this. So I am staying on the keys. But the idea is the same. It's the same idea as what I did here when I moved up like this. It's just that my motion is much, much reduced. Okay, so that's the idea, is to keep the muscles in your fingers strong enough and rigid enough so that they don't buckle as you fall down on the keys and they get pushed down as your hand tries to make contact with the bottom of the key bed. Okay, one more thing about this. You'll notice it's hard to make everything get played at the exact same time. You do need independent strength in each of your fingers, even as you're playing every note equally. But you still need independent strength. You still every finger needs to be aware of the amount of force and muscle execution it needs to play a note. How stiff or how contracted does it need to be so that it doesn't buckle as the note gets pushed down? And the only way to get that muscle independence and that strength in every single finger is to take a chord shape. So let's take our first chord and just play these notes. It's arpeggios, okay? Chords are really just the ultimate form of scales and arpeggios. More on that some other time. In this piece, for example, which is chords, you really need to make one of the notes in the chord ring out. And we'll talk about it more at that point. This is the A-flat major prelude. Okay, so in both cases, you need that muscle independence, and the way to get that is to play arpeggios like this. Try it staccato. Go from forte to pianissimo. Go legato, go staccato, try different fingerings, go through all your scales, all your keys, and get that muscle independence. And the better the hand becomes at knowing how to engage itself in these various shapes, the better it will be at keeping steady so that you can play equal chords. All right, that was our introduction to chords. I went deeper than I expected. We'll talk about it more. A lot of other songs, especially in Chopin, require chords, but that's a good introduction. Now, the second thing for practicing it is how to practice these chords with the pedal. Again, the pedal is such a rich topic, how to play with the pedal. The first thing I would suggest is keep the pedal down and just repeat a single chord. Get used to the fact that with the pedal down, everything becomes kind of louder. If you're not careful, the sound will just keep adding up and it'll just keep getting louder and louder and louder without you even really wanting it to. So you have to regulate and maybe play a bit softer than you would without the pedal, So now I'm playing a little louder, but as soon as I've got the pedal down, I'm playing a little softer so that I'm careful the sound doesn't add up too much. So that's the first thing I would suggest you do, is get used to what it sounds like to repeat a chord with the pedal down. And the second thing is, this is just regular pedal practice. You need to be able to switch between these chords imperceptibly. The up and downness of the pedal has to be very, very quick and in sync with the chord change. This is really something I think it's pretty basic, and also you should practice it with a teacher. So I'm not going to go into it much here. Maybe in some other episode we will. But it is like a fundamental. I just want to point out, be very imperceptible with these pedal changes. You almost don't want to hear that it changed. In fact, I think one of the cool things about this piece is letting some of the chords, and especially notes of the melody, blend into each other. If you don't clear the pedal fully, if you don't release it all the way up before you put it back down, you can make notes blend together. I cleared it a little bit, but very, very little. So now these sounds blended together. So yeah, so that's kind of it with the pedal. Get used to what it sounds like to play chords with the pedal, and really drive home that imperceptible change of pedal, so you almost don't hear that it's changed. But most importantly, get used to what it sounds like to repeat chords with the pedal, and how you can do stuff like maybe lean into it a bit more to bring like a wave of sound before the wave of sound recedes. It's very easy to build up waves of sound and let them fall down with the pedal. Just lean into the chords a bit more to build up, and then as you raise the pedal slowly, you can lose some of that sound and the wave comes back down. Beautiful. Lifeblood of the soul of the piano, the pedal is. Okay, the last thing is, it's not much to say. Essentially, once you have these chords down, and once you have the rhythm, right, that bum 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 bum, once you have that down, incorporate the melody. I would suggest even singing the melody with your voice to bum bum, because it is a very singable melody, and it kind of imitates a human voice, like raising and falling, kind of like sighing at a funeral, I think how some people have described this. And you'll notice that the melody doesn't, when you make it expressive, it doesn't fall very robotically right on the chords. It's kind of in between. It's a little, you see I kind of delayed it? Now I'm on the beat. Don't overdo it, but you'll notice that, especially if you try to sing it before you play with your hands, with the right hand, you will tend to be expressive with it and let the melody do something which I said it shouldn't do, kind of stand on its own. Let it breathe on its own on top of these chords, and in that way it actually won't fall very robotically on the chords. Sometimes it will be a little around them, and it makes them much more beautiful. But before you can do that, you need to really have that rhythm down, have the chords on with the pedal, and have the rhythm really in your system. So that's it for how to practice it. Great piece to practice. Let's end with how to learn it. Oh boy, how to learn this piece. I only have one tip for you, because I cannot find rhyme or reason for these chord changes. They, with very few exceptions, it almost feels random to me, like he just chooses one of the notes in a chord to get changed and then changes it. And I don't know, it took so long to actually get this down. Even the weirdest parts of it's like a weird Bach, which does some stuff like, oh boy. Do, 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 do. Oh my God, I'm forgetting it. Weird stuff like this makes more sense once you dig into it than some of these chord changes. So I'm only going to give you a couple of tips on places where I think you, like, what word did I use for it? I forget the wording I had for it. There's a couple of places where you can kind of lock into it and be a little bit more grounded. And then the rest of it, you're kind of on your own. You just have to memorize. So right at the beginning, we're in E minor. The first chord change, it moves to the dominant. So in E minor, the fifth note of the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is B. That's a B minor chord, but because we're in a minor key, E minor, we want the dominant to actually be a major chord so that we have this leading tone, this D sharp. Makes us feel like we resolve much better to that E minor. Okay, so B major, that's the dominant. So in the first chord change, we move to the dominant. That's something that helps me kind of get locked in here. It's not a true dominant, it's actually a sus. What's a sus chord? Take your regular chord, take the third. If instead of playing the third, you play, for example, up here, a note above or a note below, this is what's called a sus chord, a suspended chord. The idea is that it's suspended, it's not resolved. It wants to resolve to that beautiful third. So this is a suspended chord, okay, especially if we add the melody over here. What you'll notice here, this is just a B major chord with the seventh. That's what that A is there for. And it's suspended. We're going to resolve the suspension. So at the beginning, it is easier to memorize because we're just on our one chord. And then we go to the 5 chord in the suspended version and resolve it. Then you kind of need to just memorize what changes and how it changes for quite some time. The other thing that helps me is once we've landed from this D major 7, a D7 chord, to the D minor, this is when the melody does this thing. Excuse me. We're on the D7 chord. So when the melody, instead of just doing pom, 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 when the melody does pom, 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 when it adds that extra 16th note in there, I know I've memorized that, oh, that happens after I've landed on the D7 chord when it moves to the D minor 7 chord. And I know it does that because it signals that we're about to do this kind of ending. Okay. I always used to forget when I do the ba-bum, bum, ba-bum, and I realized, oh, okay, it happens. I had to force my brain to remember that it happens once I've landed on the D major when it moves to the D minor. Okay. More stuff. When it restarts, again, it goes to the dominant in the suspended version, but now, the second time around, this is the other thing that I've remembered that kind of helps ground the piece. Instead of resolving the suspension like this, the way it does at the beginning, he actually moves down not just the E, he moves down this F sharp as well to this weird chord. So I know that the second time around, the suspension moves down over here. And then more stuff to memorize. more stuff. And that's kind of it. The rest I just have to, there's no other things in here that, like points that I can use to help me ground this piece. Yeah, unfortunate. I don't know what else to say. If there's some rhyme and reason to it that you have, I'm very curious what you used to make more sense of this. It frustrates me a little bit because it sounds so beautiful. It's almost as if there's no other way for this piece to have been written, but I can't figure out why this works and why other things don't. You'll notice it if you do something wrong and you don't. That sounded weird. I'm changing one note, but it sounds different. It's not the same. You'll notice it if you mess up and you don't change the right note, suddenly the whole spell breaks. So there is some reason to why it's written like this, but I can't find it. Oh well. Okay, how are we doing with time? 50 minutes, not too bad. We really went pretty deep with this one. Thanks for watching. Let's play the piece. Thanks for watching. That was the second take.